For several years, my cybersecurity Homelab ran on VMware, which was the industry standard known for its rock-solid reliability and its rich feature set. However, with its recent licensing changes and shifts in the ecosystem, I knew it was time for a change. Now, while I've previously created an entire series on building a cybersecurity Homelab with VMware when it was still free, check out the playlist in the description below, I've actually now transitioned to Proxmox. The Proxmox open source virtualization platform delivers enterprise-grade capabilities including clustering, high availability, and snapshots without the hefty price tag or restrictions. It's basically the perfect foundation for anyone serious about building a security-focused home lab, and personally what I need for my current home lab. But before we dive into the rest of the video, let's zoom out a little bit. What we're really talking about here is virtualization as a concept. It's the ability to take one physical machine and carve it up into multiple isolated environments. And this is made possible by something called a hypervisor. Now, there are two main types of hypervisors. There are type 1 hypervisors like Proxmox or VMware ESXi, which run directly on the bare metal on the host itself and give you maximum efficiency and performance, just raw power. And then you have type 2 hypervisors like VirtualBox or VMware Workstation, which run on top of another operating system and are great for learning and general lightweight testing, but not truly as powerful for running a full-fledged lab like Proxmox. And since I personally want my new cybersecurity home lab to mimic enterprise infrastructure as closely as possible, Proxmox as a type 1 hypervisor is the right tool for the job. On top of this virtualized foundation, we'll be installing Wazuh. Now, if you've never worked with Wazuh before, here's the big picture. Wazuh is both a SIEM and an XDR platform. SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management. It's a category of tools that collect logs, events, and alerts from across your environment. So think your servers, your endpoints, firewalls, cloud services, and then centralizes them for analysis, monitoring, correlation, and threat detection. It essentially gives you visibility across your digital landscape. For more information about SIEMs, check out the videos I've linked in the description where I explored the technology and functionality of SIEMs in greater depth. Now, XDR, which stands for Extended Detection and Response, takes that one step further. So instead of collecting data, XDR actually helps you to correlate signals from multiple layers, which may include your endpoints, your networks, your cloud workloads, and provide a unified picture of threats with automated response capabilities. So Wazuh combines both of these into a free open source solution that competes with some of the biggest commercial tools on the market. So why does this matter for your home lab? Well, because having a SIEM or XDR or SIEM and XDR running in your own environment doesn't just teach you the technical side of detection and response, it also gives you hands-on experience with the exact kinds of tools that real enterprise security teams rely on in the enterprise world. You'll learn how to deploy agents on endpoints, forward logs, build detection rules, and even develop automated responses to alerts in real time. So in this video, I'm walking you through installing Wazuh on Proxmox step by step so you can bring enterprise-grade security monitoring into your home environment. Real quick, if you're new here, I'm Day, a cybersecurity engineer at Amazon with 5 years in the field. My experience spans detection engineering, cloud security, incident response, threat hunting, and most recently threat intelligence. Before Amazon, I worked at Datadog as a cloud threat detection engineer, researching cloud threats and building detections for various cloud providers and SaaS applications. I've worked my way up from various SOC analyst roles, investigating everything from endpoint threats to cloud-based abuse, so I understand what it takes to break into this field. I started just like many of you, learning from scratch, asking questions, and figuring out step by step, and now I'm here to help you do the same on this channel. So if you want to stay up to date on the cybersecurity industry and everything technical and career related, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Also, check out the links below for resources including our Discord community of almost 7,000 members, our newsletter, and other channels. Now let's deploy Wazuh on Proxmox. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with this installation. So this is the Wazuh website. As we can see here, it gives us a lot of information about what you're able to do with Wazuh, everything about endpoint security, threat intelligence, security operations, cloud security, XDR, and all of these different things. Alright, so for us to actually gather the installation steps, we'll go to documentation. And I actually recommend kind of going over the getting started and kind of understanding like the Wazuh components. And also if you need help, you could also join the the Slack channel or Discord or whatever other platform, just to kind of keep your pulse on what's going on there. Also, this is a good place to learn more about the components of Wazuh. So basically stuff like indexer, the server, the dashboards, the agents, like how the architecture actually works. And there's a deep dive into each and every one of these different things. So you can kind of look at the docs. I always recommend reading the docs because you can just never go wrong with reading the docs. There's always something that you're going to learn from reading the docs. And this has a pretty much good outline of essentially everything you need to know about Wazuh. So I'll also be referring to this, every now and then for different things, right? So we can see all the details here. But we actually care about the installation guide. So we're not going to be following the exact installation guide here because we don't have anything here. We're going to be using an installation alternative, specifically Virtual Machine OVA. So Wazuh provides a pre-built virtual machine image in Open Virtual Appliance Format or OVA, which we can then import into something like VirtualBox. Actually, Proxmox can allow us to use the OVA format, so we're actually going to be using that. So I'm actually going to copy the link to this here, copy this link, because we're going to be using the command line to actually grab this particular package. Let's go back into our Proxmox environment. So this is my Proxmox environment. I only have one single host here, which I'm hoping to actually start building some clusters as I get deeper into this stuff. But for now, this is all I have. All right, so I'm in the shell of this current host, and I'm going to navigate into var lib. If I do an ls here, we can see we have a bunch of different files in here. So we have a bunch of files here. What we actually care about is this particular VZ file. So we're going to navigate to that VZ file. Actually, I meant VZ directory, not VZ file, because there's actually multiple files in this directory. Now, this directory is the default storage location for Proxmox virtual environment. And basically, we can use this particular folder to upload ISO images or OVA images or virtual machine disk images, whatever the case is. And this is where we're going to be actually pulling the virtual machine OVA for Wazuh into. As you can see, there's already folders for dump, images, and templates, so it's the right place for that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a directory for Wazuh. I'm going to name it Wazuh and navigate to that directory. All right. All set. So we're going to then go ahead and use wget to grab that OVA file, which we copied earlier on. Run that. And it's going to take some time because they're pretty big files. So we'll wait a minute for this to download and then we'll get back into the next installation step. All right, so it looks like this is fully downloaded. So let's look here. We have that Wazuh OVA file. Now we're going to extract the contents of this OVA file using tar. So we're going to say tar xvf, and that was a file. And it seems like this is not auto-completing, so I might just have to type it out. 4.12.0.ova, and we'll run that. Now what this is going to do is going to use tar, extract the contents, and we can see that we have the output of this OVF file, this virtual machine disk file, and this other MF file. Now what you actually care about is the virtual machine disk file right here, this VMDK file. But before that, while we still have this VMDK file here, we actually have to create the virtual machine where this disk image is going to be loaded to. So we're going to do that by going into lab 0, create a VM. We'll leave it in lab 0 for now because that's the only node we have. And then we'll name this Wazuh. We'll keep the VM ID here the same, but keep it in mind we're going to be using it later on. And then next here we're going to say for the operating system, do not use any media because we're just going to be booting from a disk. And then next year, we're going to use Q35, which is just a newer technology for this. But if you prefer to use i440FX, that's up to you. But I'll personally be using Q35. Next here for the disk setting, we're going to delete the disk here because we're actually going to be adding this disk to this virtual machine, the disk we extracted after the installation or after the deployment of the virtual machine. And then next here for CPU, actually Wazuh has recommendations for CPU. So CPU, you'd want to have 4 cores for CPU. So let's go back and just add that in there. 4 cores. We'll leave everything else as it is. Next, for memory, it actually needs 8 GB of memory. So we're actually going to type out 8192, which is 8 gigabytes in megabytes. And next, for network settings, we're going to leave it as it is. Next, we'll just double check what we have here. So we have 4 cores, we have the CPU, we have this for memory, we have the name, we have the node name, and we have the VM ID. Everything looks good. We're going to finish this. All right, that was pretty quick. It created the virtual machine for us here, where we have Wazuh 100 right here. Now, we actually need to import that disk that we created here. I think I already left away, so it's in the varlib vz folder. Oh, the autocomplete actually works. And it's in Wazuh. So we have to import this disk here. Now, the command to import this is going to be qm import disk. I'm going to break this down in a second. Specify the vmdk file. And we're just going to try to autocomplete this, -disk. All right, there we go. And then local LVM, and then format raw. Now let's break down every part of this command. So qm is the Proxmox virtual machine manager command. And then import disk is the subcommand for what we're doing here, because we're importing a disk. And this right here is the source disk image file that we extracted from the OVA file from Wazuh. And then local LVM is basically the target storage location we want this to be, which is what we have right here. And then finally, the format raw specifies what specific format the disk should be imported as, which in this case is going to be raw. So let's go ahead and run this. And it looks like I spelled local LVM incorrectly, so I'm going to fix that. Let's run this again. And it seems like I'm missing something here. And it looks like I was actually missing the virtual machine ID, which should be right here. So it looks like the format is qm disk import vmid, which, if I remember correctly, is 100. So let's put that in there. And then let's run this command again. All right, there we go. So this is going to have to import about 25 gigabytes. It's going to take a bit of time. So we'll just cut to when the import is completed, but it shouldn't take too long. All right, so it looks like the import is done. Now we can attach this disk, local LVM VM100 disk 0, to the virtual machine. So let's go to the newly created virtual machine. We'll select hardware, and we have an unused disk here. Let's click that, and let's add it. So now we've added this disk to this virtual machine. And then we also have to update the boot order. So let's go to options, and here in boot order, we have these 2 different devices that actually don't really matter for the boot order for this particular virtual machine. So we're going to just unselect them and select this new virtual machine disk that we just added. And then we'll select OK, and that should be all set. So with all of this all set up, let's go ahead and just go to the console option, and let's go ahead and start this virtual machine right now. And it should actually allow us to get into Wazuh, as you can see right here. All right, looks like it's booted. Let's go ahead and log in. So the username is Wazuh user. Password is Wazuh. All right, and it looks like it's all set. Let's actually find out what IP address this is running on, and let's use the command IPA. All right, it looks like this is running on 192.168.1.133. So let's grab that and see. 192.168.1.133. All right, we're going to click advance. I'm going to accept the risk, because why not? And here we are. We can log into the admin portal here, admin, log in. And boom, there we go. We have our Wazuh deployed and ready to go for whatever we needed to do. All right, so the next step we want to take here is actually change the network configuration so we can use static IP addressing for our Wazuh virtual environment. Now, personally, I want to assign the IP address to kind of match the VM ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the cd etc config file, sysconfig file, And here we have various configuration files here. What I care about is actually network scripts. And here we have a bunch of different network scripts or configuration files. What I care about is this ifconfig ith0 file. So I'm going to do a sudo nano ifconfig ith0. And here we have various settings for the network configuration here. We can see that it's using DHCP and a few other things. So what I want to do is I want to change this from DHCP to static. And then under here, I'm going to add a few more configuration settings. First one is I'm going to specify the IP address with IP ADDR, and that's going to be 192.168.1.100. I want that to match the VM ID. And then we're going to set a net mask of 255.255.255.0. And finally, we'll add a gateway of 192.168.1.1. Going to save this. Yes. And then we need to restart the network service. So sudo system cuddle restart network.service. Let's run this. All right. Now, if we try to go to our Wazuh from the old IP address, it shouldn't work. Looks like it still works. Let's see what happens when we actually try to go to it from that new IP address, 192.168.1.100. Let's see. Advance. Accept the risk. All right, looks like it works here. This might just be like a cached page or something. I'm going to reload this. Looks like it still works for whatever reason. Let's see. What if I log out? Looks like that still works, but I think what's more important is that 192.168.1.100 works right now, and that's where we want to access our Wazuh environment from. So admin, log in, and we're able to access our Wazuh environment. Now for the most important setting of all settings, let's go into our Wazuh settings, our Wazuh menu, go to dashboard management, dashboards management, and advanced settings. And we want to find the most important setting here, which is appearance. And for appearance, we want to choose dark mode. That's the most important setting here. We save that, we reload the page, and boom, we've got Wazuh in dark mode. And that's it for the installation of Wazuh on Proxmox. Alright, we now have Wazuh up and running on Proxmox, turning this Homelab into a true SOC environment. We covered why I switched from VMware, the role of hypervisors, and how Wazuh brings together SIEM and XDR to give you enterprise-grade visibility and detection right at home. But this is just the beginning. Having the Wazuh server is one thing, but actually getting data into it is where the fun really starts. So in the next video, which will be over here if it's out, I'll walk you through installing Wazuh agents on different devices including Windows, macOS, and maybe even some IoT gear. So we'll see how the agent collects logs, forwards events, and gives you insight into everything happening across your environment. But first, if you don't have Proxmox up and running, then check out this video over here on how I set it up.